UCLA finally gets their man in 2026 high school recruiting, and Mick Cronin fortifies the post with this latest commit.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of Locked On UCLA. Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer, I'm with you guys. This Bruins recruiting class finally beginning to grow here in 2026. The Bruins, who have kind of shied away from high school recruiting, have found a way to dive in and get their man. Welcome back, everydayers. If you've listened to this podcast, you know Mick Cronin is truly, I don't know if he's struggling, but he's pivoted a lot more towards the transfer portal. I would like Cronin to at least balance between the two, because you can't just go exclusive portal and go away from the freshman recruiting. We've seen that from times before. But what does UCLA need in next year's team? A young big man. All right, that's what they need. Trent Perry expected to come back. You got a young guard. You have Eric Freeney if he can develop year over year. You have Booker expected to come back, Daly to come back. Those are some key pieces you can see in next year's rotation. But the Bruins haven't had a true big man since Adem Bona left. They had a Daimara last year, but he played sparingly when he was used. Really, really good. Transferred out. So Mick Cronin goes back to his roots, a big man, undersized in Javonte Floyd. Welcome him to Westwood, 6'9", 6'10", about a three-star center out of the state of Georgia. His markings from 24/7 Sports are high motor, high energy, defensive intensity, and that's exactly what Mick Cronin has been searching for. That's the type of guy UCLA needs. Almost a William Kyle-like guy could have truly helped this team be elite, which is why it sucks that both Daimara and William Kyle transferred out of this team, because if they just had one defensive rim stopper, the Bruins could have been even that much better here in 25-26. Well, the Bruins get their young post. Booker does have another year of eligibility, but the other two centers, Peoples Jr. and Jamerson, are both graduating this year. So Floyd comes in, a top 30 center across the country, top 15 prospect from the state of Georgia, and this is a guy who UCLA kind of signals to the rest of the country, hey, we can actually still high school recruit. We still are interested in that. Now the Bruins have missed out on Anthony Felici. They missed out on other guys, or didn't even check in on a super talented class from Southern California, right? You had the Miles Sadlers of the world, the Felicis who was on the West Coast of the world, and then you mix in Christian Collins, who has UCLA, USC, and Kentucky in his final three. All right, the Bruins are in the mix for a top-tier guy, a five-star from SoCal. But looking at various projections and predictions, it looks like Collins is most likely headed to Kentucky, but he's not signing yet. There's nothing official about that. We'll see if the Bruins put in a final effort. But reading what Floyd was telling 24/7 Sports during his commitment is that UCLA went after this guy hard, especially when the Bruins had not anything going for them. They didn't find the big man that they wanted. And Floyd's like, all right, let's make this happen. The Bruins go after somebody who probably fits Cronin's mode and model, all right? A high-intensity big man that'll play a lot of defense. I don't know a lot about his offensive giftings, but based on what I've been reading, this is a guy who Cronin and Floyd seem like they'll match in terms of high school recruiting. A guy that wants to prove himself, a guy maybe under-recruited by other spots, but even in this year, offers by from Purdue, Clemson, and Iowa. Those are all guys that like to utilize big men, especially Purdue and especially Iowa in previous history under the previous regime. So the Bruins got a guy that other Big Ten schools were looking at, even the ACC, but they win him with Floyd choosing between UAB and UCLA. And sometimes that might be a source of concern, that if it was coming down to UCLA versus UAB, it's like, shouldn't UCLA win that recruitment 10 out of 10 times? Well, I would guess so if you're looking at opportunities, prestige, status, the guys you're going to be going against. But the Bruins also really needed somebody in the post on next year's roster. Somebody who could play some defense consistently without fouling. And I'm not as qualified to tell you if that's going to be him right off the bat, but Floyd seems super excited, and this is a good guy to come in. Officially visited, I think, in early November. Also came around the weekend and checked UCLA's win over Oregon out from what I was reading. The Bruins have got their postman. And this is in recent years where the Bruins haven't got anything since Trent Perry in terms of high school recruiting. They got Eric Freeney, a very early commit to last year's team in the class of 24. Then a lot of nothing. Bruins hit the transfer portal very, very hard, only to get a last second commit from Perry because Eric Musselman took over the job that Andy Enfield left. So Perry's like, I'll come to UCLA. He's been here for 2 years. If Markel Alston from New York didn't sign very late on this year's team, then the Bruins would have had zero commits for a very long time. And with Alston not truly contributing, the Bruins haven't had a true freshman contributor in a very long time, in the last couple of years. Now, Perry had some minimal minutes, but since the debacle with all the international freshmen, the true freshmen domestically, Cronin has really pivoted away from high school recruiting. He's gone after the portal. He's gone after Donovan Dents. He went after the Sky Clarks of the world, the Eric Daly Jr.'s, the Bilodeaus, all those guys, some of which have worked or some have turned into a Dominic Harris that couldn't get on the floor, couldn't mesh, despite him being a shooter where UCLA's team a couple years prior couldn't even shoot the basketball whatsoever. It's a far cry from getting the Dembonas, from getting the Amari Baileys, and now the Bruins have just completely almost forgotten about high school recruiting. And I think that's not as good. That's kind of devastating the recruiting model. The Bruins should be able to go get high school recruits. They should be able to get some of the top tier transfers to Cronin's liking so you can develop, but also not just completely avoid high school recruiting. You can't have Mick Cronin turning into the Chip Kelly of high school recruiting, right? And I know Cronin's not forgetting about it. He knows how important it is, and you don't have to do it as much year in and year out to build your roster. And re-recruiting a roster in basketball seems like the most chaotic thing possible. But UCLA, the one true super freshman they got, they lost to Mara to Michigan. They've brought in Trent Perry, who still has waited for consistent starting minutes in 2 years, although with him coming off a sprained ankle, hopefully he can turn into a true contributor for this team. I think his breakout is coming soon for this season. But Cronin hasn't exactly put himself on the market as a top tier place for not even just the elite 5 stars like Boozer this year, just even the 4 or 3 stars that could be good and develop. Because Cronin has been, I'm not going to go give those guys some time because they haven't panned out for me in the past. And if you're not going to make the tournament with a very young roster, and Cronin's demands defensively, his lack of offensive cohesion sometimes with what he's trying to do with various recruits, it shows with the way his team played a couple years ago with the international recruits that I thought, oh, this team could be good. Well, you have one guy who's a Big Ten starter. You have another guy who is helping lead one of the best teams in the country in Michigan. Maybe Cronin wasn't that far off at evaluation, but let's go get those guys and keep them. Good thing is the Bruins did get Floyd, who's coming to UCLA, adding to the post, and maybe there'll be another ad in this 2026 recruiting class, or Cronin's going to go truly through the portal. Truly. Because he went through the portal a couple years ago. These guys are cycling out. The Clarks, this year's Donovan Dent, Bilodeau and company, Jamerson and Peoples Jr. There's a lot of space that's going to be that needs to be filled in next year's roster. Absolutely. So we'll see what Cronin decides to do. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994. And with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part. That's why the Game Time app is clutch, finally gives fans the real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Game Time, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when your great seats are open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back into your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. Pull up the app, and the app is super simple with its layout. Scroll through the matchups and compare seat views. Prices include fees up front, which I love, and there's no last-second surprises at checkout. Alerts for teams and matchups make it easy to grab tickets for the moment they drop instead of missing out. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time, the World Cup tickets. Every match, concert, event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Game Time. Thanks for making Locked On UCLA your first listen of the day, and thanks for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live your team every day. Now take it up to the next level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club today, and hey, get Locked On UCLA with no interruptions. Members-only Discord access, and hey, maybe just for $5 a month, $5 a year, go to look up on the Locked On website, look up Locked On UCLA's Everydayer Club, check the link and look for more. Thanks for making Locked On UCLA, and check it out. Have fun. Well, thanks for watching this show. Hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA, fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.